I'm in my early 40s, a working mom with 2 kids. My parents live just a short drive away, close enough to check in, close enough to feel like part of our daily life. For a long time, I thought I had stability, a steady job, a husband I trusted, and a family that would never break. But when my father risked his retirement savings for my husband's dream, everything changed. And the day I found divorce papers on the kitchen table, I learned how fast trust can turn into betrayal. My father drove trucks most of his life. Long routes, winter routes, holidays he missed with a promise to make it up later. He carried the years in his shoulders and in the way he eased himself into chairs. When he finally retired, he said he didn't want much. A small garden, a cheap thermos that didn't leak, coffee with my mother on the back steps when mornings were cool. Then my husband lost his job. He talked about it like a temporary setback, then like an insult, then like proof he was meant for more. He said those words a lot. Meant for more. He said he couldn't go back to taking orders. He needed to build something. He had a plan, he said. A cafe with simple food, good beans, a neighborhood feel. He could see the sign already. He could see lines out the door. When he spoke like that, his eyes lit up. He held the air like it was a whiteboard only he could read. He made failure sound like a bridge and himself like the person who knew how to cross it. We sat at my parents' table one night to explain the plan. My mother listened with her arms folded. She asked a few questions, not unkind. Rent? Suppliers? Permits? Marketing? He answered quickly, like a man stepping from stone to stone. When he didn't know, he said, "We'll adjust." That's what entrepreneurs do. My father didn't ask many questions at first. He watched. He watched my husband's hands and posture, the way he leaned forward, the way he smiled when he said, "This is for the family." Then my father looked at me, and I knew he was measuring something else, the hope in my face, maybe, or the years he had worked, so I didn't have to learn the hard way what money costs. "It's risky," my mother said. Quiet, level. "You're asking for a lot." "It's not a gift," my husband said. "It's an investment. I'll pay it back with interest. I want you to be proud." My father half smiled at that. "Pride is expensive," he said. He meant it as a joke. It didn't land. After they went to bed, my husband kept drawing circles on a legal pad. Arrows. Numbers that always ended in profit. He was good at that, sketching a future that made the present look small. I wanted to believe him. I also felt a warning in my throat that I kept swallowing. A week later, my father asked us to come over again. He had read up on retirement withdrawals, penalties, taxes. He had talked to the bank about a home equity loan. He told us what it would mean in plain language: less cushion, more risk, fewer choices if something went wrong later. He didn't say my age or my health. He didn't have to. "I can help," he said, "not because I think businesses are easy, because I think families should try." My mother stared at him. "We can't afford to be foolish." "I'm not being foolish," he said, still gentle. "I'm being a father." He turned to my husband. "If I do this, it's not only money. It's my name on paper, my house holding up your dream. You understand what that means?" My husband nodded hard. "I won't let you down." He said it like a vow. Strong voice, steady eyes. It landed this time where the joke hadn't. My father signed the withdrawal request first. He paused when he reached the last line and flexed his hand. Then he signed the loan documents. No speeches, no drama. Just his name over and over, the way he'd signed delivery slips in warehouses at 2 a.m. After, he handed me his pen. "This is for you," he said, not him. He meant the future he hoped this would buy. He meant a softer path than the one he walked. We drove home in near silence. My husband tapped the steering wheel and talked about suppliers again, about a soft opening, about the playlist. He was already living in the next month. I sat with the image of my father's pen. The weight of it had surprised me. The money cleared faster than I thought it would. Down payments went out. A lease, insurance, a logo. Every time an invoice arrived, my husband said, "It's fine. This is the build phase." He liked phases. Build, launch, grow. He made it sound tidy. I kept track in a notebook. I liked totals. We painted the walls ourselves to save money. We learned to use the espresso machine from a teenager who had mastered it in a summer job. My husband filmed a short video for social media in which he said this cafe would be about community and craft. He said it in his best voice, the one he used to persuade clients back when he had clients. He could still turn that voice on like a light. My parents came by to see the space before opening. My mother brought rags and a spray bottle. She wiped counters no one had touched yet. My father walked the perimeter slowly, like he was checking a truck before a long haul. He sat on a chair in the corner and nodded to himself, the way he did when a map made sense. "We'll be fine," my husband told him. "Give me 3 months. You'll see." My father didn't answer right away. He was looking at the register, not at the numbers, there were none yet, but at the place where numbers would live. He finally said, "3 months is a lot and a little." Then he stood and patted my husband's shoulder. "Work hard. Don't pretend." The night before opening, my husband couldn't sleep. He paced the hallway and practiced greetings under his breath. He was nervous and alive. It reminded me of the early days with him, the energy that got me to say yes to a man who promised momentum. I touched his arm and said, "We're with you." He kissed my forehead and said, "I know." Opening day looked like a win. People came, friends, neighbors, parents from school. My father paid for his coffee with a 20 and told my husband to keep the change as if tipping the future. My mother took pictures and refused to smile in any of them, her way of not jinxing anything. My husband moved behind the counter like he had been born there, laughing, clapping backs, calling out names for orders with warm confidence. He was good at the part of business you can see. At closing, he counted the till and grinned. "Told you," he said. "We're going to be okay." I didn't answer. Not because I doubted yet, but because I didn't want words to tempt fate. I wiped a clean counter again. Habit already. That week, invoices kept arriving. Beans, milk, paper goods. The waste bin filled with test recipes. We stayed late adjusting grind settings, adjusting expectations. My husband said optimization a lot. He posted twice a day. He watched the comments like weather. My father stopped by after the rush most days. He chose the same chair in the corner and sat with his hands clasped, observing. He didn't offer advice. He knows advice can sound like doubt. He would wave me over only to say, "Drink water," and then shoo me back. The first slow afternoon slid in quietly. 1 o'clock felt like 4. The espresso machine hissed at no one. My husband stood at the window and said, "It's a Tuesday." On Wednesday, he said, "It's raining." On Thursday, "There's road work. People are avoiding the block." Each reason sounded small by itself. Together, they felt like a net. On Friday night, my parents came for a late coffee. My husband put 2 extra pastries on their plate and pretended it was generosity and not inventory management. My father looked around the room. He didn't say, "Where is everyone?" He said, "You learn the truth of a place after the balloons come down." He took a bite and nodded like a man choosing to like what was in front of him. On the drive home, I said to my husband, "We should look at the numbers this weekend. See what the runway really is. Maybe cut back on staff. Maybe we hold off on the sandwich station." He tightened his grip on the wheel. "You always go straight to fear. This is how businesses die. Owners panic and pull back right when they need to push. It's not panic, I said. It's math. He laughed once. No humor. Math can be made to say anything. I thought of my father's signature, solid and simple. Math, in his world, had always been the miles left on a route, the hours until dawn, the weight on a pallet. You couldn't make it say anything. You had to carry what it said. That weekend, we met my parents again. My mother came with a legal pad of her own, numbers written in her careful hand. My father let her run the conversation. He sat back and listened. "We're not telling you what to do," my mother said. "We're asking what you plan to do." My husband leaned forward. Charming again. He talked about promotions, cross posts with nearby shops, a weekend music night, a loyalty card. He rubbed his palms together when he said momentum. He promised again to pay everything back, soon, sooner than we feared. My father finally spoke. "I don't need you to promise me money. I need you to promise me you'll see what's real when it's in front of you." My husband held his gaze. "I see it." "Good," my father said. "Then you'll be fine." He said you and not we. I caught the difference. I don't think my husband did. On the way out, my father stopped beside me. "I meant what I said before," he told me. "This was for you. If it goes well, good. If it doesn't, we'll still be here." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. He squeezed my shoulder once and let go. That night, after closing, I counted receipts while my husband drafted another post about community and resilience. He asked me to like it from my account. I did. Then I opened my notebook and looked at the totals again. I didn't show him the margin I circled twice. I thought of my father's house, the loan pinned to it like a note on a fridge. I thought of my mother pretending not to look worried. I thought of how belief can be both a blanket and a blindfold. The papers on our table, the ones I would find months later, didn't exist yet. But sitting there with a stack of receipts and the smell of over-extracted coffee clinging to my clothes, I felt the first draft of an ending begin to write itself. The first weeks after the opening felt like living inside one of my husband's speeches. He moved through the cafe with the confidence of someone who had finally found the stage he'd been waiting for. He wore his new apron like a badge, sleeves rolled up, voice loud and warm as he greeted each customer. He had nicknames for regulars within days, though some of them were just neighbors stopping by out of curiosity. He was magnetic. That was the part of him I had fallen for years ago, the energy that filled rooms, the certainty that tomorrow would be bigger than today. He had a way of making even silence feel like applause. At night, he told me about future expansions. Not just one cafe, but a chain. He described different neighborhoods, different menus, even merchandise. He spoke as if the one cafe already belonged to the past. "You'll see," he said one night as he poured himself a drink after closing. "This is just the start. People crave authenticity. We'll be the place they talk about." He said we, but I knew he meant him. I watched him that night, his face flushed from alcohol and adrenaline, his hands moving as though he could shape the future in the air. For a moment, I wanted to believe again. I wanted to let his vision be enough. But I remembered the notebook in my bag, the receipts tucked inside, the totals I had circled. Numbers don't dream. They count. The decline wasn't sudden. That made it harder. At first, there were just slower afternoons. He blamed the weather, construction on the next block, even the time of year. He had an explanation ready every time, as if naming the problem solved it. He started ordering more expensive beans, convinced quality would draw people back. He added pastries from a trendy bakery downtown, though the markup made my stomach knot. He said it was about branding. One evening, after I had finished mopping the floor, I asked if we should consider trimming hours to save on labor costs. He snapped the mop bucket closed and said, "That's loser talk. Winners double down when it's tough." I stood there with wet shoes and swallowed the words I wanted to say. My father's name was on the loan. Loser talk wasn't an option for him. The staff noticed too. A college kid we hired part-time asked me if paychecks would bounce. I told him no, firmly, though I wasn't sure myself. He quit 2 weeks later. Customers trickled off. Some still came, loyal neighbors, a couple who liked the quiet, but the buzz was gone. The hum of conversation gave way to the hiss of the espresso machine filling the silence. The sound grew sharp, mocking. My husband's moods shifted with the till. A good day made him buoyant, a slow day, and he turned mean. Not shouting, not at first. Just cold, dismissive. "Maybe if you smiled more at the counter," he told me once. "Maybe if your parents didn't look so skeptical when they stopped by." It was always someone else. One night he slammed the register drawer shut so hard it rattled the cups. "They don't want us to succeed," he muttered. "Who?" I asked. "Everyone," he said, his jaw tightened. "Especially your family." I wanted to scream at him. My father had given him everything. But the words lodged in my throat. My father's faith still sat heavy in my chest. Saying it out loud would make it real, that faith was misplaced. Instead, I said, "We need to face the numbers." He laughed, a single bitter sound. "Numbers don't scare me. Doubt does." He walked away before I could answer. I stayed at the counter, staring at the neat columns in my notebook. The ink didn't lie. The cafe was bleeding and the wound was deeper every week. Home became another battlefield. Conversations that once drifted around the kids, dinner, or errands narrowed down to money. Always money. I'd open my mouth to suggest a change, and he'd cut me off before I could finish. "You think I don't know how bad it looks?" he snapped once, slamming a cup into the sink hard enough to chip the rim. "You think I don't hear the silence when no one walks in?" "I'm not blaming you," I said quietly. "Yes, you are. You and your parents. They never wanted this to work." The bitterness in his voice was sharper than the cup's broken edge. He stopped looking at me the way a husband looks at a partner. He looked at me the way he looked at the receipts, like a problem that wouldn't go away. At night, he'd lie in bed, scrolling through his phone, muttering about online reviews, convinced a single post could save us. When I tried to reach for him, to remind him we were still here, he turned his back. My mother noticed. She always noticed. One afternoon, she pulled me aside, lowering her voice, though no one was around. "He doesn't respect what your father did," she said. "I see it in the way he speaks. He wanted the money, not the faith." I shook my head, unable to answer. Defending him felt like lying, agreeing felt like betrayal. I said nothing, which felt like both. The kids grew quieter. My daughter asked me once if we'd still have her birthday party at the cafe like we promised. I forced a smile and said, "Of course." She didn't look convinced. Neither was I. Every day the walls pressed closer. Every day the silence between us lengthened. I thought back to his eyes the night he spoke of being meant for more. Now those same eyes were dull, flat, tired, or worse, angry. The cafe's end wasn't marked by an announcement. It was marked by absence. No morning rush, no evening chatter. Just chairs that stayed empty and milk that expired before it was used. Bills stacked higher. Rent overdue. Suppliers called, their voices clipped and polite until they weren't. One evening, after a day with 3 customers, my husband closed early without a word. He dropped the keys on the counter, walked out, and didn't come back until after midnight. I cleaned alone, the mop streaking across a floor that no one had walked. My father came by the next morning. He took one look at the half-empty shelves, the dust settling on untouched cups, and understood. He sat in his usual chair, the same corner where he had watched us open with pride, and stared at nothing for a long time. When I brought him a coffee, he smiled faintly. "Still good," he said, though it wasn't. He added quietly, "Don't punish yourself for this." I nodded, but guilt was already rooted deep. I saw his signature on every unpaid bill. I heard my mother's warning in every silence. I felt the weight of choices I hadn't been strong enough to stop. That week, we locked the doors for the last time. My husband didn't say much, no farewell speech, no thank you. He simply muttered, "We'll try something else," as if debts could be reset like chalk wiped from a board. I wanted to scream, "There is nothing left to try." But I held it in. My father's shoulders had sagged enough. At home, the air was heavy with failure. My husband blamed me with his silences, with his absence, with the way he avoided even looking at the children. I lay awake that night, staring into the dark, guilt pressing down until I could hardly breathe. My father's sacrifice, my mother's doubts, my husband's anger, my children's confusion, all of it sat on my chest like a weight I couldn't move. And still, part of me hoped we might find a way back. Some last chance to stitch together the pieces. I didn't know yet that the sharpest cut was still to come. It was a Tuesday evening when everything finally broke. I came home later than usual. The house felt too quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't just happen, it waits. On the table lay another stack of papers, but this time it wasn't receipts or overdue bills. I recognized the header instantly. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My throat closed. My hands stayed steady, but my chest quaked. The words blurred, but the meaning was clear. He walked in from the living room, arms folded, his face blank, almost rehearsed. "I can't do this anymore," he said. His tone was cold, stripped of anger, stripped of anything human. "You've always chosen your parents over me. You never really believed in me. I deserve better." That last sentence cut deeper than any shouting could. I thought of my father's bent back, his hands steadying a pen as he signed away his retirement. I thought of my mother's warnings, her eyes sharp with worry. I thought of our children, who had believed this cafe was a family dream. And here he stood, blaming me, blaming them, asking for better, as though loyalty, sacrifice, and love weren't already more than he deserved. I pressed the papers against my chest, though it felt like they were pressing into me instead. He didn't wait for an answer. He walked past, out the door, leaving silence in his wake. The house didn't collapse. It just stood there, hollowed. The days after blurred. I went through the motions. Work, school runs, dinners, like someone moving underwater. Nights were worse. Sleep slipped away, replaced by guilt that whispered louder than any voice. Maybe if I had argued harder with my father. Maybe if I had stopped the loan. Maybe if I had been a better wife, a better partner. The word better haunted me, the same word he had thrown in my face. My father tried to comfort me. He sat with me at the kitchen table, the same table where the papers had first appeared. "This isn't your fault," he said. "Don't carry what isn't yours." But I did. My mother's eyes carried both anger and pity. "You see now," she said once, "he was never worthy of what your father gave him." Her words weren't cruel. They were final. It took weeks before something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the children's laughter returning in small bursts, or the steady way my father still watered his garden, as though seasons didn't stop. Maybe it was the silence that became less heavy with time. One morning, I woke to light spilling across the floor. ordinary light. And for the first time, I didn't feel crushed. I felt present. The hurt was still there, but it no longer owned me. I realized I could live without his promises. I could live with the truth that betrayal had ended what love couldn't save. Life didn't tie itself into a neat bow. It rarely does. My father's health isn't what it was, but he still tends his garden and insists he doesn't regret helping. My mother stays close, sharper than ever, but softer when she looks at me. The children have adjusted in their own ways. They talk about their dad sometimes, but less each week. Their world is smaller now, but safer. As for me, I'm not sure I believe in fresh starts the way I used to. But I believe in steady steps, in mornings with coffee that isn't bitter, in nights without slammed doors. I lost a husband. I lost the dream my father signed his name to. But I still have my children. I still have my parents. I still have the will to move forward. That's enough.